Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Arrow. So in this episode, basically breaking it down, is Diggle and Oliver infiltrating... I forgot what that place is actually called. The place that Hive has set up as the place where everyone can escape from Genesis. That place, basically infiltrating good, because that's where they find out where Thea is. It's very interesting when we actually we get a little sample of just what Damien is, capable of with all the lives he absorbed when that town went on, because that's like 10,000 people plus 10,000 plus people or so that died, and Oliver fired an arrow at him and it just like incinerated, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't even trying to do that." So he super powerful. So I know we've someone talked about the fact is that this season was mainly setting up Hive as the main antagonist of next season, but it's like it does seem like mainly this does seem like Dark's baby. It doesn't seem like, obviously we've seen the Hive influence here and there, but it's like it seems like it's Hive, I guess because they are kind of like a shadowy organization, they're kind of working from the background, so I guess that's why we haven't seen much of them. It's just like the main showrunner we've seen for this is Dark, so I thought that was just, I don't know, just something that kind of popped in my mind. But it is kind of crazy when you it's something I never really even thought about, the fact is of just how weird it is that when Oliver and Diggle go in there and just looking at the place, it's like it's not until they really kind of point out how weird it is. And side note, I'm just gonna point this out. Diggle said like, "Oh, Mount Weather." Instantly, I was like, was that a 100th reference? It's like, no, it wasn't. Apparently, the way he was talking about it, it's like that's a legitimate thing. Like, there's a place, I guess, set up called Mount Weather in case of like nuclear fallout or something like that. So I was like, oh, that's like historically a thing. That's not just something exclusive to the 100. But just the moment he said that, I was like, was that him making a reference to the 100? Maybe it was a slight reference, just them both being CW TV shows. Like I said, it's just me overthinking it, but it's just like that probably is a real thing. I didn't look into it, but the way he was talking about, it's like that's probably like a real life thing too. But nevertheless, it was just something I ended up noticing. In this episode, we kind of really got a look at the dynamic of the entire Smoke family. I love the fact that Curtis ended up finding out that that Noah is Felicity's dad. He's like, "Oh, like one of the greatest hackers in the world is your dad." He's like, "You make so much sense now," because he was basically saying, "I was looking at your mom and I was wondering how you ended up being the way you are," which to me I'd look at that as kind of like that's kind of backhanded of you, Curtis, because it's like saying like, yeah, Dawn's not the smartest tool in the shed, so I was wondering how she ended up with a daughter that's extremely smart like you, but it's like it makes sense when you consider who your dad is. But I also did like his line where he was basically talking about the fact is that like he called Felicity over because it basically sent her a text saying there's trouble. He's basically like, "I don't know how you do it." Basically, all the name calling and all the yelling, it's just like, you poor thing, and gave her a hug. Essentially, Dawn and Noah finally met up, because like Dawn's kind of been kept in the dark about everything, and you kind of see and hear them talk and how they're bickering back and forth, and it's just like Curtis was drinking, and then Felicity wanted to drink a little bit because of the whole situation. It kind of took her back to being a kid again, I suppose. But it ended up coming out, it's like, oh, Dawn's like, "Oh, she's like, oh, Felicity would never lie to me. She's not like you. She's taken more after me than she has after you." But then Felicity tells her the situation about, and she's like, "Why do you have to get involved?" She's like, "I've been working with the Green Arrow for the past 3 years." She's like, "Oh, I guess you have more in common with your dad than I thought." It's like, it's like in circumstances, kind of understandable. It's like, had no choice but to lie, because it's not something that you really want to like. You can't go really parading around. It's like, "So guess what, Mom? I'm working with the Green Arrow to save the day, save the city. We're fighting all these supervillains and stuff." Awesome, right? Not the kind of conversation you kind of pick up with. And it's like, for one, we don't really. It wasn't until more recently we've kind of gotten to see Dawn because like Felicity had always kind of like her mom, like the entire time she's been working with Team Arrow, her mom has never really come up. And I don't like it prior to her coming into the show, like appearing on the show. It's like it does seem like her and her mom had a very distant relationship. Like she probably talked to her mom from time to time, but it's not like they continuously talked. It's not like they had probably the closest relationship, mainly because it's like her and her mom are very different. They kind of have very different interests. Which later on in the episode we see like Felicity and her dad kind of working together and kind of being a good team, and she even calls him dad, which prior to this she's always kind of like slipped up in my like dad. I mean Noah, because she's always kind of corrected herself, but this time she was dad and she was kind of smiling. You kind of see it on Dawn's face that Dawn was kind of upset a little bit. To me, I interpreted that as like maybe Dawn was a little scared that well, in multiple ways it can be interpreted, but initially I was interpreting it as like Dawn was a little scared because she's like, I'm going to lose my little girl because she's with her dad now. She's realizing how much of her and her dad have in common, and it's me and her don't have enough in common. So it's just kind of like maybe she felt like she was losing her, but really it was because she didn't want Felicity to get attached to her dad, because she was always knew that Noah could never change, and she didn't want to put Felicity through that, because for the longest time Felicity's believed like, okay, her dad walked out on her, but that's not the case. Dawn admits it's like, no, I walked out on him. I took you and we left because he had his own issues and I know him, and he has no business. He's not going to change, but so that's why she left him. And it kind of hurt Felicity a little bit because she knows like, this entire time you had me believe dad just left us when, you kind of lied to me. And Dawn's like, I hope you can forgive me, essentially. I hope you won't hate me for it. But it's like, when you think in retrospect, it's kind of like, well, considering the type of person he turned out to be, it's kind of a good thing she left when she did. I mean, she, left before like, the storm hit, the storm of him being like a criminal hit, so that's kind of good. Kind of didn't even get swept up in that, but it's like, she did what she did, not just for herself but for her little girl, because I think she was saying like Felicity was like 7 at the time. So there's even an interesting comparison between I kind of don't see where he's coming from. I guess on some levels I kind of get it, that basically Felicity kind of makes, like, Curtis kind of made the comparison between Felicity's mom and dad as between her and Oliver. Just kind of like, just that whole, I guess, dynamic between them, and just somewhat the circumstances of the relationships, I guess. So it does make you wonder, will, like, him pointing that out kind of put things in a different perspective for Felicity, and will she decide to give her and Oliver one more chance? I mean, I hope she does. I hope they do, like, get together. Which it just popped in the back of my mind. Apparently, a lot of people don't like Felicity. I didn't know that. Like, I heard someone talking about it. Apparently, a lot of fans don't like Felicity. I was like, why not? Like, I don't see what the problem is with her. She's pretty. She's funny. She's a very essential part of the team, and it's just like she's like probably, in my personal opinion, probably the best girlfriend for Oliver. I mean, future wife for Oliver. I mean, just in my opinion. But I heard that one time and I was like, that was so shocking to me that people apparently don't like Felicity. That just kind of blew my mind. I've always loved Felicity since the first time we met, just because of how awesome and awkward she is. I don't know. I've constantly brought up how much I love Felicity, but still, nevertheless. But I like that whole scene in, like I said, the place Hive had set up, to protect people. I like that whole, like, when basically they were running and just like all those guards were around. It's like they were kicking ass. They weren't even slow. They were like taking guys out and just kept trucking along Oliver and Diggle. That was pretty badass. They're like two commandos going like head first. I mean, it's like they are behind enemy lines, but they handled themselves pretty well. It is kind of sucky that Malcolm made Thea take that pill. And I love that freaking reaction he had to Alex being there. He's like, oh, that sucks. I kind of liked him for you. It's like, shut up. Like, she needed your approval in choosing a boyfriend, you jerk. And I hate it. Like, the fact is that he's like, basically, because Oliver was like, I should have, like, because basically, like, I should have taken more than your hand. I should have taken your head. And then Malcolm's like, oh, come on, Oliver. Like, you never would have, killed me. And he's like, Laurel's dead because of you. He's like, so what are you going to do about it? You never could have killed me before, so why are you talking like you would have? It's just Malcolm just it seems like he's going to keep pushing Oliver to the point one day Oliver will end up killing him. And because the only reason why Oliver's never killed him, I mean, for one, it's because he doesn't want to go back to being that person anymore. Two, that's Thea's dad. If he died, like no matter how much Thea hates him, if Thea ended up killing him or Oliver ended up killing him, on some level, maybe Thea may never forgive him, and maybe that's what he's worried about. I mean, because they've already lost their parents. They've both lost their mom. They both lost their dad. I mean, obviously he was just Oliver's dad, but still he was Thea's dad too. So it's like that's kind of the only other family she has other than Oliver. So that's why Oliver's trying to protect that. But it's like Malcolm doesn't make that easy. To me, I've kept getting the impression like maybe Malcolm's not 100% okay with this whole Genesis thing, even though he makes it seem like he is. Talking that all this talk about like how the world needs to be wiped clean because of just how just bad things have gotten. Because essentially, we ended up finding out that basically a lot of the people there, they're not actually taking the yellow pills. A lot of just the people, neighborhood people in this place, although all of them are there because they believe in Genesis, because they believe the world needs to be wiped clean. They believe in Dark that much because basically Dark came to them at a time when they weren't filled with hope, like they were hopeless, and he gave them hope. And to Oliver, that's kind of a low blow because it's like he thought that him and the team were doing enough job to like give hope to the city, but it's like honestly they weren't. If these people were so determined, they were so hopeless that the only ray of hope they saw was someone like Dark doing what he is, where he's basically wiping out the world. It's like it's kind of sad. I mean, because they talk about the world being in a bad state, but it's like in DC, like universe wise, it makes you like we see that the Flash is in Central City, and we obviously have Arrow in the Green Arrow in Starling City, but it's like we get references here and there that other superheroes exist. So I mean, granted, no matter, even if there are other superheroes, it doesn't change the fact that the world's kind of, in a crappy state, but it's also kind of like, is there not, like, in this particular universe of Arrow and Flash, is there not that many superheroes? Like, we've seen in the connected universe, there's references to Batman and Superman, but it's like, are they like active? Are they just references people have thrown out there, or is that like concrete proof that they exist in these universes? Like, is Batman here? Is Superman here? I mean, because it seems like, I don't know, because you never really get like a global scale on how things are, because everything that goes down in like Central City or Starling City is usually located to this, because this is like the most world ending, because everything has always been centered around like basically things going down in Starling City, but this is like the first time like it's like on Arrow that things have gone to a global scale. So but we had Anarchy showing up, and basically there was that conversation he had with Reve. Once again, finally got her name. I always refer to her as Mrs. Dark, but Reve, where basically she was like, you do realize that once Genesis is activated, this will be the only last place that people can go, and you're about to destroy. And he's like, what kind of impression did I make to make you think that I'm a rational person? I like that line. It's just like, I'm crazy. Did you get that? Have I made you think I was sane and rational in some shape or form? But I like the whole Reve situation. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, part of me is like, there's that part of me that's like, who doesn't like the villain? Like, who's like, F the villain? Like, they got what they deserve. I mean, that's what you get for being a bad person. I mean, it's not like your hands are clean. You've done a lot of shady crap, but it's like, still, she doesn't deserve that. I mean, her daughter's going to grow up without a mom, so it's kind of like, and especially when you kind of get that sense when she's like telling Oliver to get her daughter out of there, and please, and it's like, it's kind of like, and you see Oliver kind of going like, yeah, I'll do it. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it kind of breaks your heart a little bit. I mean, hell, it broke Dark's heart, because like, the moment he found that out, he was like, you know what? Screw this, like, because basically because of anarchy, that whole place blew up, which we had Malcolm get people out of there, which, Malcolm was telling Oliver, like, what do you think, like, what makes you think we have anywhere to run? It's like, wow, but Oliver's like, no, there's still hope. He's like, you're just being an idiot. He's like, no, I believe, so. But we saw him get a lot of people out. Whether he was able to get everyone out, I don't know, because it's still up in the air on whether or not they got out or not. But I can only assume so. Malcolm kind of knew his way around, so maybe he found a different passage. But the entire place went up. There's literally a gigantic crater. Isn't it? The place is located in the Glades, and it's just like a massive crater there in the Glades now. And it's just like, they're like, okay, it's done. But then it's kind of like, no, because Oliver's like, we still have to give them hope, because then, this happened because a lot of people didn't have hope. They, like, no matter what, even with what they're doing, it's still not enough to inspire people. It's not enough to fill them with hope in this whole situation. But going back to it, Dark is just upset. He's like, the fact is that his wife is gone, the love of his life, and this place is going now too. I mean, because it's just like, I don't know. It's just like his entire world is shattered in that moment. It's just like, to him, his wife is like, she's probably one of the main reasons why he wanted to go through this plan. I guess, like, his child was too, but it's just kind of just like the woman he loves. So probably only other, like, one of the only two people in this world he actually loves and cares about. The reason why he's doing all this is not just for himself and not just for the world in general, but also for them. I guess that ended up leading to him just kind of snapping his decide, basically, like, I will just watch, the entire world will just have to burn. It's just like, wow. So basically he's not holding anything back anymore. It's just like, let's destroy the world. And at the very end, we see him kind of confronting Felicity, Dawn, and Curtis. So we next week is the season finale, and it looks very interesting, and it's going to be, it looks like in that episode we're going to see even more of what Dark can do now. Another thing that happened in this episode obviously was the flashbacks, which I finally know her name, Diana. It's like I've been literally going this entire time never saying her name, because I kept referring to her as the lady that's on the island with Oliver. But obviously last episode she ended up taking the statue from Ryder and ended up possessing her, and we're kind of picking up from there. And like the power, like, is kind of like seducing her, and she's like, just kind of in the sense that, because I didn't get this impression, I must have missed that, in some flashbacks, but apparently Ryder wanted strength to protect, he never wanted to feel weak again. So that basically when he wanted something, when he wanted to protect something, he'd be able to do it without feeling like, being powerless. And she was basically being seduced by the power, and she's like, I can go back home and free my people, essentially. But she's so obsessed with the power that there was like a guy that was wounded that she wanted to kill, and Oliver was like, no, don't do this. She ended up tossing Oliver aside and ended up snapping his neck. I was like, wow. But because like the power is inside her, just like it is Ryder, because she ended up getting shot. She's still ongoing. The last thing we see is her and Ryder confronting each other. So it's like that. We're going to see how that situation goes. I can only assume it ends with both of them being dead. But it's like, it does make you wonder, like, where's Oliver going to go from here? Because this is leading up to, I don't know, like, I never really got that span of time from it. But it does seem like obviously every season is, one of the year, each of the flashbacks is one of the 5 years he was on the island. So this is like the 4th year. So, and someone else kind of pointed out the fact is that Oliver isn't like the bloodthirsty kind of person, not necessarily bloodthirsty, but willing to kill anybody if he needs to, person that he was back in season 1. So he hasn't reached that point yet. So maybe next season's flashbacks will show him kind of finally like going that far. I mean, we've seen that to a smaller degree this season, but it's like he still cares. That's the thing. Like, he cares about people, but not to the extent he does now, presently. Like at the beginning of the series, he didn't like, if he needed to kill someone because they were a bad person, he killed them. There was and he felt no regret about it. It's like, they're a bad person, so they need to be stopped, and I need to put them down. So, but that's just, I mean, that's what's floating around in my head. It's just, but like I said, I'm very interested to see how this whole Damien Dark situation is resolved. So, but that's kind of all I really wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and Goodbye. Well, that was something that was else kind of on my mind, but I didn't really know where to throw it in, so I figured I'll tack it in on the end of it. There was that line that Dark said in this episode that I really like. He's like disappointed about the whole situation. He was like, I was gonna wake up and thought it'd be kind of like Christmas, but I ended up waking up and finding out I have coal. Like, I guess was I being a naughty boy? I don't know why. I like that just because it's just like. And just like starting to look a lot more like Christmas. I don't know. The whole thing is just like it's just one of those just like evil maniacal thing. Especially because he also did the typical evil guy thing. Like I could kill you now if I wanted to. When he was talking to Oliver and Diggle early at the beginning of the episode. But I'm gonna let you live for now, just so you can see everything go its way, and then I'm gonna kill you later on. Essentially, kind of a typical bad guy thing. But that's just all I wanted to kind of tackle on at the end there, just to say that. So, bye.